a great note to turn it to the audience. I see, let's start with Sadanand.
Thanks very much. My question is for Kurt Campbell. I've seen an explanation bandied about for the sort of decline in US, or the turmoil we've seen in the US-India relationship over the past year and a bit as really being downstream from the current administration's China policy, right? And that you could sort of explain a lot of the things from the tariffs to the closeness to Pakistan and so on, to the simple fact that they may not be invested in the idea of great power competition with China in the way the previous administration was, or even in the way that the previous Trump administration was. I'd like to get your sense of what you make of this argument. Thanks.
Yeah. Look, I think that's a powerful observation, and the reality is that there are many elements of the U.S.-China relationship from the American perspective that are not clear. I think what's interesting is that President Trump and his team have practiced really a kind of policy of ambiguity, of uncertainty about truly where our interests lie. If you look at the administration, it is truly a very big tent when it comes to China. You have members of this administration that believe that the next enemy of the United States is China, and we have to prepare for that. Not just competition, but very direct steps. And you have other people that think that that is nonsense, that we can make a lot of money in China, that family members can make a lot of money, and we can do a lot of stuff, and why can't we just do business? I would say right now it appears that that second group probably is more dominant, and it is undeniable that the president appears to be quite interested and comforted by the idea of hanging out with authoritarians, something that I really actually don't understand very much. But I will tell you, despite where the president lands, it is undeniable. I think the last 13 years of President Xi, there's been no leader on the international stage, no leader that has been so clear in his speeches and his pronouncements and his policies of where he is taking China. He believes that China is in a fundamental competition with the United States, that we are in hurtling decline, and is positioning themselves accordingly. And so my hope is that when the president goes to Beijing in a month, and you have to understand, guys, how unusual that is. It's unusual that the president wants to go, and it is unusual that the Chinese are prepared to host him in the middle of a conflict against one of their partners. What that means is that they think they got some stuff that they can accomplish with President Trump. They think they can get some benefits in technology. They think they can get some things done in Taiwan. You've got a fantastic team here who focuses on that in Hudson. I think quietly, we all say it's complicated, complex, dynamic, but beneath the surface, deep anxiety that American interests will be put on the table there. And what's also interesting is that we've never had a situation where a president goes with so little constraints. He will be able, on an individual level, to make decisions without worry about what political parties and other groups say. Now, there is a strong bipartisan agreement about competition with China, but Republicans have yet to really want to speak out on that publicly. I think that is going to change, and I believe that we will reassert that these are issues of concern, and India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, other countries are critical partners in that endeavor, an endeavor that we do not have the capacity to take on alone. But I think what you're suggesting is exactly right, but I actually don't, like what I always tell friends who are visiting, who are determined to find an intellectual framework that they can affix to how President Trump sees the world. I don't actually think that's how he operates. And it is entirely possible that what has happened here is simply maybe the president was unhappy about being nominated for an award. And maybe from that, that's where we are. Maybe it's just that, right?
Okay, we've got a lot of questions and we're coming up on time. So I'm going to choose let's do 2 questions together of the 2 people who made eye contact with me first, which are Walter and Shashank Matu in the back.
Great panel. Sure, Mike. And thank you, Kurt, especially, but all of you for joining us today. My question would be, it seems to me that U.S. and Indian interests in the Gulf area don't see any sign of coordination or consultation in the current crisis. Is this a conversation of thinking together about the Gulf? Is this a conversation that in your mind would be a useful thing to try to work on?
Before we get to it, let's also just take the last question there in the back, and then we can choose your poison, and we'll wrap it up there.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. Dr. Madhav, I think a lot of the conversation here has been about the politics of the relationship now in India and how difficult that's become. Could I ask you your sense of, over the next couple of years, some concrete suggestions about how you make the politics more unstuck? And Dr. Campbell, to you, your predecessor as Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, made an extraordinary statement when she came to India saying that we are not looking to build a broad-based relationship with Pakistan, which is a fairly extraordinary statement. Now, when you see a lot of people who are tracking the US-Pakistan relationship, their sense is actually Pakistan has a decent shot of integrating itself much more into America's Middle East strategy. My fundamental question to you is a strong US-Pakistan relationship compatible with a strong US-India relationship?
Okay, so we've got actually 3 questions. Let's just go down the line with our final takes. I'll start with you, Ram.
No, as far as the Middle East is concerned, it is true that the region is very, very important for India, as it is very important for the US also. Between our 2 countries, there was a lot of coordination during Trump 1.0. And after the Abraham Accords, we had I2U2. We invested in what we called as IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So there was great anticipation about the potential of the Middle Eastern region for India. And there we always saw the United States as an important partner. But last few months, the developments in the last few months have put a big question mark on both I2U2 and IMEC. We need to re-engage on these 2 issues. We have to probably redesign them. We have to make a few changes especially in IMEC. Nevertheless, it is very important that we don't just shelve them or just put them in cold storage. We have to engage at some level and try to revive these two very important initiatives that we took in last few years. India is certainly very keen. We are talking to some counterparts here also, whether we can at least do some academic exercise about what is the future of these 2 important initiatives that we took with regard to Middle East, where the Gulf region. As far as that question about politics in India is concerned, Indian politics is it's a democracy. Democracies are noisy. So we have a lot of noise about even the economic deal that we are trying to clinch with the US now. You have heard one of the panelists speaking about it, the questions that were there in the minds of Indian opposition. They are making it into a big issue in India, but that wouldn't discourage or desist the government from going ahead, because this relationship, as we all know, is a very important relationship, and especially this trade deal that we are almost on the verge of clinching. But I was told by very, I would say, responsible people that it will be done in next couple of weeks or before the visit of Secretary Rubio to Delhi. India is looking forward to it. The economic relationship forms the backbone or very important part of our relationship. Politics, domestic politics notwithstanding, government will go ahead with the relationship, with the agreement. Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Thanks. Just to say, this has been a wonderfully rich conversation, and I very much enjoyed it. I will take a stab at the Pakistan question, and I suspect that what I have to say perhaps will not be welcomed by necessarily all, but I genuinely think that there is room for a relationship with both Islamabad and New Delhi. And I think particularly the role that Pakistan is playing in this moment, I would not see this in zero-sum terms. I think this is the sort of global conflict that not just India, but the broader Indo-Pacific would benefit from a swift resolution to. And if Pakistan is able to leverage the relationships that it has to bring that about, I think all the better. Going forward, it will be quite interesting to see whether and how that Pakistan engagement in the Middle East strengthens. I think we're seeing indications in that direction. And simultaneously, if India deepens its relationships across the Indo-Pacific, I think there are mutual benefits there. And from a strictly US perspective, as I know Ambassador Juster highlighted earlier, as we saw last May, we're coming up on the one-year anniversary of the India-Pakistan crisis. I think having relations between Washington and Islamabad and Rawalpindi, as well as Washington and New Delhi, is very important given the risks of escalation that we see, unfortunately, in South Asia. And that is something that I think will continue and will continue to be a concern. The real question, though, is how we manage that and how we recognize that our interests and our perspectives are different here, but we respect each other, coming back to that really core idea. And we can talk about it, and we don't need to let this derail the full relationship, but thinking about ways of building out mechanisms to disagree, but to compartmentalize those issues. And I think that is the trick going forward, and I don't want to underestimate the challenge that's involved there. But realistically, in the world as it is today, I think it's one that we're going to have to confront.
Thank you. Great questions. And to Walter's good question, it's good to see Walter. I think in some respects, the U.S.-India relationship has to take a page from another relationship that has also weathered periods of complexity, and that's the U.S.-Japan relationship. There were periods in time when a new administration would come into power in Washington, and the scramble was then on in Tokyo for them to find the one or two people only in the whole administration that was prepared to work at a strategic level to try to support U.S.-Japan relations. And that could have been Rich Armitage. There are a variety of people, rest in peace, that have played that role over decades. I don't know, Walter, if it's possible to have as many prayers going out from various parts of the administration. I don't want to get him in trouble, but I think everyone hopes that Secretary Rubio, they put too much on him in the hopes that he will play a role as an interlocutor. You notice how much focus there is on his upcoming visit. There's the hope that he will be that person that will interpret the hopes of rebuilding the relationship, will reassure Indian friends, and also be able to deliver. I will say, I'm very hopeful along the lines of my Indian colleague that the trade deal is only a week or two from being done. But I've heard that now for almost a year. So I'm hopefully that week or two will come. It's a little bit like not eating dessert. I'm going to start on that next week. So I see that, but I'm hopeful, and I think that could take place. And I too am hoping. I'm praying. I've got my little frame of Secretary Rubio that I pray to, just like my colleagues. My colleagues prayed to. I was with Indian friends the day after the election, and they were. And imagine how that makes you feel. They're high-fiving. They're thrilled that Trump had won, and I'm like, God, like drop liver here, But you get what you get too. So on that point, I greatly respect Elizabeth, and I worked at the State Department, and I know what I'm supposed to say, which is almost exactly what she said. Those are the talking points that would be delivered, that I would be expected to say, but I just can't say them. I think peace and stability is reinforced in South Asia by a closer relationship between the United States and India, and an absolute clarity that all our strategic interests lie in Delhi, and that we seek no problem with Pakistan, but our interests are in India. I don't mind having lines of communication, but this is where our future lies, and that should be completely unambiguous. It's not enough to remove the hyphen. It is, the India relationship is in capital letters, and Pakistan really doesn't even appear in the paragraph. Sorry.
I'm glad you said that. I
Well, on
mean,
that note.
one thing that we generally don't relish too much is India, US, Pakistan versus US, India. This hyphenation somehow is not something that we really like, because they are at completely two different levels. India-US relationship is much bigger, much wider than the relationship that US has with many countries, whether it is Pakistan or North Korea. That's not really a real comparison that one should make. Sorry.
Well, on that note, please join me in thanking our panel.
Thank you, Liz. Good to see you.